Robert Burns, Springsteen IV, spent 5 years on death row, staring down a fate that never came. But to understand how he landed in that cell and how he walked free, we need to rewind to a fractured childhood that set him on a collision course with tragedy. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for more gripping crime stories. And leave a comment below. Robert Springsteen was born on November 26, 1974, in Chicago, Illinois, a city pulsing with energy, but offering little stability for him. His parents' divorce, when he was just 1.5 years old, shattered his early world. His mother whisked him away to West Virginia, while his father stayed in Austin, Texas, creating a divide that defined his childhood. Caught between two homes, Robert grew up unmoored, never fully settling in either place. Life in West Virginia with his mother was modest, likely stretched thin by the challenges of single parenthood, though specific details of their financial struggles remain sparse. His father, a distant figure in Texas, left Robert craving connection and stability. At 16, in 1991, Robert moved to Austin to live with his father, hoping for a fresh start. But the transition was jarring. Austin's vibrant scene overwhelmed the teen, who was already wrestling with a sense of not belonging. He enrolled at McCallum High School, but trouble followed. Behavioral issues landed him in an alternative learning center, a sign of deeper unrest. Just weeks after the brutal 1991 Austin yogurt shop murders shook the city, Robert dropped out of school. He later insisted he'd left before the crime, but the timing raises questions. Was he just a restless teen, or was something darker stirring? Robert ran with a rough crowd: Maurice Pierce, Michael Scott, and Forrest Wellborn, boys known for petty crimes around Austin. This group gave him a sense of loyalty and belonging he couldn't find elsewhere. He picked up work at places like Mr. Gaddy's Pizza, but stability remained out of reach. After a year, he returned to West Virginia, carrying the weight of those turbulent months. What pushed him toward the edges of society? Was it the broken family, the lure of a rebellious crew, or a deeper unrest? Back in West Virginia, Robert's life showed flickers of promise. He married Robin Moss in 1999, a woman much older, and took on jobs like managing a McDonald's. An arrest for public intoxication spurred him to earn a GED, a small victory. But the shadow of Austin loomed large. Years later, the unsolved yogurt shop murders would drag him back into the spotlight, with a coerced confession landing him on death row. How did a kid from a broken home become entangled in one of Texas's most infamous cases? The roots of his story, woven through instability, rebellion, and a search for identity, set the stage for a legal saga that would test the limits of justice. If you already know where this is headed, hit that subscribe button, because we just read your mind. On December 6, 1991, the quiet routine of a North Austin strip mall was shattered by a crime so brutal it would haunt the city for decades. The I Can't Believe It's Yogurt shop on West Anderson Lane was a cozy spot where teens gathered for frozen treats. That night, 4 teenage girls, Jennifer Harbison, 17, Sarah Harbison, 15, Eliza Thomas, 17, and Amy Ayers, 13, were in the shop, their lives full of promise. Jennifer and Eliza worked there, while Sarah and Amy, friends from the Future Farmers of America, had stopped by to catch a ride home with Jennifer after closing. None of them knew the horror awaiting them. The evening started like any other. The shop was set to close at 11 p.m. Jennifer locked the front door to prevent new customers from entering. Earlier, around 10 p.m., a man had been allowed to use the bathroom in the back, taking an unusually long time. Witnesses later reported seeing 2 men at a table, acting secretive, just before closing. These fleeting moments would later haunt investigators. Were these men the key to the tragedy? Around 11:47 p.m., A nearby store owner heard strange noises from the roof and noticed smoke seeping into his shop. He opened the back door and saw flames inside the yogurt shop, its rear door inexplicably ajar. A patrol officer, cruising the alley, spotted the fire and called it in. What seemed like a routine blaze turned into a nightmare. Firefighters forced open the locked front door and battled the flames, only to uncover a gruesome scene. In the back, they found the bodies of Jennifer, Sarah, Eliza, and Amy, stripped, bound, and gagged with their own clothing. Each had been shot in the head, execution style, with .22 caliber bullets. Amy, the youngest, was found apart, with 2 gunshot wounds, one from a .22 and a fatal .380 caliber shot that tore through her brain. Evidence suggested Sarah had been raped, possibly with an ice cream scoop handle found nearby. The shop had been doused with lighter fluid and set ablaze, a calculated move to erase evidence. The fire charred the bodies and destroyed much of the scene, leaving families and a community in shock. The loss of these vibrant girls, Jennifer and Sarah, sisters with dreams of track and volleyball, Eliza, eager for college, and Amy, just 13, full of curiosity, ripped a hole in Austin's heart. How could such evil and strike in a place so ordinary? Investigators believed the motive was robbery gone wrong, with $540 missing from the register. The organized nature of the crime, binding the victims, using 2 different guns, and setting the fire suggested a cold, experienced hand, not impulsive teens. But who could commit such a calculated act and vanish into the night? The crime was discovered just before midnight on December 6, 1991, when Austin police officer Troy Gay spotted flames at the yogurt shop while on patrol. Firefighters arrived quickly, but their efforts to douse the blaze flooded the scene, washing away potential evidence. The back door, found unlocked, hinted at how the killers escaped. The medical examiner confirmed the girls were dead before the fire, killed by precise gunshots. Amy's second wound and Sarah's rape added layers of horror to an already unthinkable crime. Forensic evidence was sparse. The fire and water damage obliterated fingerprints and other traces. 4.22 caliber bullets were recovered from the bodies, but their condition prevented matching them to a single weapon. A .380 caliber bullet and shell casing were found. Confirming 2 guns were used, DNA from an unknown male was collected from Sarah's rape, a critical clue preserved for later testing. No surveillance cameras existed, and while credit card records were traced, cash-paying customers left no trail. The scene was chaotic, with firefighters and police inadvertently trampling potential evidence, leaving investigators grasping at straws. 8 days later, on December 14th, police arrested 16-year-old Maurice Pierce at North Cross Mall, just blocks from the shop, carrying a loaded .22 caliber revolver. Pierce claimed his friend Forrest Wellborn used the gun in the murders, implicating Robert Springsteen and Michael Scott as accomplices. He described a chilling story. Wellborn returned sweaty, smelling of hairspray, and the group stole an SUV for a joyride to San Antonio the next day, where Wellborn allegedly asked for the gun to kill more girls. But the shell casings couldn't be definitively matched to Pierce's gun, and after intense questioning, lead detective John Jones dismissed Pierce's story as a lie to dodge the gun charge. Wellborn, Scott, and Springsteen denied involvement, and all 4 were released. Was Pierce's story a desperate fabrication, or did police miss a crucial lead? The case went cold for years, and with over 700 leads and 342 suspects, including false confessions from 6 prisoners, In 1999, new detectives revisited the four teens, now in their 20s. After grueling interrogations, lasting over 20 hours, Springsteen and Scott confessed, providing details about the crime scene. Springsteen admitted to raping and shooting one girl, while Scott described participating in the robbery-turned-murder. Their confessions led to their 1999 arrests, alongside Pierce and Wellborn, for capital murder. But no physical evidence tied them to the scene, no fingerprints, no matching ballistics, no DNA match. The confessions, later recanted as coerced, were the only link. Springsteen had no prior criminal record, though his history of petty crimes with Pierce's crew and a later public intoxication arrest in West Virginia painted him as troubled. The case hinged on those confessions, but a shadow loomed. Detective Hector Polanco, involved in the interrogations, had a history of coercing false confessions, as seen in the wrongful convictions of Christopher Ochoa and Richard Danziger in 1988. Robert Burns Springsteen IV later claimed he was innocent in the 1991 Austin yogurt shop murders. He insisted he had no part in the brutal deaths of Jennifer Harbison, Sarah Harbison, Eliza Thomas, and Amy Ayers. His initial alibi in 1999, when police interrogated him in Charleston, West Virginia, was vague. He said he was likely at a movie or hanging out with friends, possibly Maurice Pierce, Michael Scott, or Forrest Wellborn, but he couldn't pinpoint his whereabouts on December 6, 1991. He denied being at the I Can't Believe It's Yogurt shop that night. This alibi, it was shaky. He offered no concrete evidence, no receipts, no witnesses to confirm his story. The lack of specificity made it easy for prosecutors to dismiss, especially when Springsteen's own videotaped confession emerged as the cornerstone of the case against him. Police interrogated Springsteen for over 20 hours in September 1999, extracting a confession where he admitted to raping and shooting Amy Ayers. He described details like the .380 caliber gun used and Amy's body position. Facts prosecutors claimed only the killer would know. Springsteen recanted, saying detectives pressured him, feeding him details and implying he'd go free if he confessed. He testified, he gave up, and told them what they wanted to hear, believing physical evidence would clear him. But the prosecution hammered his confession's accuracy, noting it matched co-defendant Michael Scott's separate confession, which described the same crime scene details. The defense argued these non-public facts, like the gun's caliber, had leaked over the years, citing confessions from others, like Alex Brunius, who also knew details, but were later ruled out. The trial began in May 2001 in Travis County, focusing solely on Amy Ayers' murder. Prosecutors Robert Smith and Darla Davis leaned heavily on Springsteen's confession, as no physical evidence, fingerprints, DNA, or ballistics tied him to the scene. The fire and water damage from firefighting efforts had destroyed most forensic traces. They played Springsteen's videotape confession for the jury, emphasizing his knowledge of the .380 caliber weapon, a closely guarded detail. Defense attorneys Berkeley Bettis and Joe James Sawyer countered that the confession was coerced, pointing to Detective Polanco's history of extracting false confessions. They argued Springsteen was exhausted and misled by police tactics, like overstating evidence, against him. They also challenged the use of Scott's confession, read in court without Scott testifying, a violation of Springsteen's right to cross-examine his accuser. Key trial moments included Springsteen's testimony, where he appeared unemotional, insisting his confession was false. Jurors later said his demeanor hurt him as he showed no remorse. The prosecution called Amy's father, Bob Ayers, whose emotional testimony about his daughter's loss moved jurors to tears. The defense called no witnesses during the punishment phase, a risky move that left jurors with little insight into Springsteen's character. After 13 hours of deliberation on May 30th, 2001, the jury found Springsteen guilty of capital murder. On June 1st, 2001, after 11 hours of deliberation, they sentenced him to death by lethal injection. The courtroom was heavy with emotion. Jurors wept, victims' families sobbed, and Springsteen stood motionless. Could his confession, the only real evidence, be trusted? Or had Austin's desperation for justice clouded the truth? Springsteen's legal team quickly appealed, targeting procedural errors and the questionable confession. Their primary argument was that using Michael Scott's confession at Springsteen's trial violated his Sixth Amendment right to confront witnesses, as Scott didn't testify and couldn't be cross-examined. This was bolstered by the 2004 U.S. Supreme Court ruling in Crawford versus Washington, which clarified that testimonial statements, like confessions, require cross-examination to be admissible. Defense attorney Mary Kay Sikola argued that Scott's statement, read to jurors, heavily influenced the verdict. As one juror later confirmed, it struck a chord by matching Springsteen's confession. The defense also challenged the confession's voluntariness, claiming coercive tactics by Detective Polanco. No mental health issues or intellectual disabilities were raised. Springsteen had no diagnosed conditions, and his GED and work history suggested average cognitive ability. On May 24, 2006, the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, in a 5-4 decision, overturned Springsteen's conviction, citing the Crawford violation. Judge Paul Womack wrote that Scott's confession likely swayed the jury, and its admission wasn't harmless, beyond a reasonable doubt. The court found the evidence legally sufficient for a retrial, but sent the case back to Travis County. Dissenting Judge Sharon Keller argued Springsteen's own confession was powerful enough to convict, dismissing the harm of Scott's statement. The state considered retrying Springsteen, but faced a new hurdle. In 2008, advanced YSTR DNA testing on evidence from Sarah Harbison's rape and other crime scene items showed DNA from an unknown male. Not Springsteen, not Scott, not Pierce, not Wellborn. This bombshell cast doubt on the confessions, as no physical evidence ever linked the four to the crime. On June 24, 2009, Springsteen was released on bond after nearly a decade in prison and 5 years on death row. On October 28, 2009, Travis County prosecutors dismissed all charges against Springsteen and Scott, citing insufficient evidence for a retrial, especially with the unmatched DNA. The case remains unsolved, with the unknown male's DNA a lingering mystery. Was the real killer still out there, or had the system failed to prove Springsteen's guilt? After his release, Springsteen returned to West Virginia, seeking a quiet life away from the spotlight. A 2016 report indicated he was working common labor jobs, his reputation tarnished by the case despite his exoneration. In 2016, he filed a petition under Texas's Tim Cole Act to be declared actually innocent and seek $720,000 in compensation for wrongful imprisonment. The state opposed, arguing that such a ruling could prevent future charges if new evidence emerged. The Travis County District Court denied his claim, and on December 21, 2016, the Texas Court of Appeals, 3rd District, upheld the denial. stating Springsteen didn't meet the Act's criteria, as his release stemmed from a procedural error, not a court finding, of actual innocence. Since then, Springsteen has kept a low profile, with no public updates on his whereabouts or activities. The stigma of the case likely lingers, a heavy burden for a man cleared but never fully vindicated. How does someone rebuild after years on death row for a crime they probably didn't commit? Robert Springsteen's journey from death row to freedom exposes the fragility of justice when confessions are coerced and evidence is scarce, with the yogurt shop murders still unsolved and an unknown man's DNA haunting the case. What do you think? Can the truth ever be uncovered? Or will Austin's darkest mystery remain in the shadows? Share your thoughts below.